already talked a little bit about the end of the streak and what this means for Chicago and how they're just going to have to move on from this. Made it through halfway this season without losing in regulation, and what's next here. But obviously, so exhaustion was a big factor with the Hawks playing. It was 9 games in 2 weeks, just going back to this past 2 weeks here. And they had a lot of national media attention. Taves was quoted as saying that he thought in the past couple games when it really was on ESPN and everybody was coming in to talk about the Hawks, that it kind of got out of hand. Might have been a little bit of a distraction, added a little bit of pressure, as much as the Hawks were saying that they weren't trying to think about that. But then going back to defense, I think the biggest thing is just the breakdown of that penalty kill. I mean, this penalty killing unit that we've been talking about and has been getting so much praise for how strong it was nowhere to be seen these past few games. And not even just these last 2, but it's been slowly kind of dwindling down, allowing more power play goals. That depth was important to get us through the season, especially the way the season was set up this year, being so many close games. But it was as if, this whole regular season is how the playoffs are, where, you have every important game and you need as many healthy players as possible, and that really helped the Blackhawks with their depth this year and just being able to spread out the minutes amongst talented guys. And when you've got people on the 4th and 3rd lines scoring these key game-winning goals, that's happened to us all season long. And now in the playoffs, I think it matters even more when it's again that tight schedule. Every game is extremely important, and it's only going to be to the Blackhawks' benefit that they have this stretch of defensive depth and offensive depth, especially. The Blackhawks having 2 strong goalies is the reason that we're at this point of the season and we've been playing as well as we have, because we've been able to rotate those guys out of the net. Q said multiple times that he's going to play who's ever hot, and he always designated Crawford as that number 1 goalie, and like you said, he hasn't done anything to lose that number 1 spot. And I think it's just kind of been this flip-flop of almost an even playing field as far as the amount of play each of the goalies has been getting. And again, I don't think there needs to be a controversy. I mean, this isn't Highlander. It's not there can only be one. We're still definitely capable of having those higher scoring games. I definitely think this team has more of a defensive focus now. They're a lot more balanced between the lines, and you don't see as many goals coming from Kane aside, you don't see as many goals coming from the Taves as consistently Hossa. Definitely not Sharp right now, because it's a lot more spread, and you're seeing goals from people like Shaw and like Stahlberg, and they're coming from all across the line. So I think it's taking a little bit more time, and the big guys up top aren't wearing themselves out, and I don't think they're as focused on getting as many goals as possible as their quote of the year is finding ways to win. I think if they can find that way to win without driving themselves mad driving to the net, I think they're going to kind of hold their own and score the goals they need to score without making them these huge separation games. Not to say they're slacking off, but I think they're kind of keeping things and keeping a good pace just because of the way the season is functioning right now in this tightened schedule. You don't want to wear yourself out for one game where you can blow them out of the water 7-2 if you don't have to. It's a strategy that works during the regular season, I think, if you're playing up against a team, like the Blackhawks. And we saw it a couple of times, I think, with Anaheim, where they'd come full force, top lines running the whole night, and they'd wear themselves out. They'd get the win, but then the next couple of games, they'd be suffering from that because they threw it all on the line or on the ice. And then, the next couple of days, you're a little bent out of shape just because, you've exhausted your top guys. So I completely agree, and that goes back to the Blackhawks' depth and saying that, we have a much easier time because this is how we've played our game all season long. It's not new to us. And so these guys on the, third and fourth lines are ready to play the minutes, and they're more than capable of producing, versus when you've got teams that are going to, throw their top players out there for 40 minutes during the game. I mean, that's not going to be sustainable for 4 games, for 7 games at all. So
exactly.
I completely agree. It could be a big factor for.
With you, what are your thoughts on his performance so far this year?
I think he's someone that really shouldn't be underrated because he's Ricky. I mean, obviously Coach Quenneville's not, because he's keeping him up top with Taves and Hossa even after Dan Carcillo's been back. And one thing that I thought was really interesting was after the San Jose win, Coach Todd McLennan for San Jose referred to Saad as a player who, quote, wasn't very dangerous. And the full quote was,
Interesting.
the full quote is, "I thought we let a player that wasn't very dangerous, not because he's not talented or anything, but a player in a situation that wasn't very dangerous skate into a primary scoring spot without even challenging him." So it's pretty obvious that just because he's a rookie, they didn't keep on him the way they might have a Taves or a Hossa or a Sharp, someone who is out there. And, you know, Brendan Saad's able to take advantage of this in a very un-rookie-like way. I mean, again, the play he made, very smart given the situation. He had the one-on-one going into their zone, driving almost on a breakaway, and he fakes, and he takes the shot, and it goes right past him, Nami, and it was beautiful. So I think there's probably a lot of people underestimating him out there, but he's 3-0, no assists yet. So I think we got some good things coming from Brendan Saad, and he'll keep putting the points up there at the right time. I think it's been hard this year, especially since they've both seen such kind of equal playing time. I mean, like you said, his streak, no goalie in the history of the NHL has ever started a season 10-0-0. So that's impressive in its own right. I think Corey Crawford, though, I think he's really turned things around. He gets into his head still. You saw in a couple games where, you know, the ones that he was pulled out of, rightfully so, but I think he really made a commitment to himself. It's going to be, you know, a year for him to really prove himself as that first line, you know, of defense and goal, and I think he's really done a great job. And Coach Q, I know, has said numerous times that, you know, he has that luxury where he doesn't have to worry about who he puts in goal one night or the other. He knows that both will perform for him. But in the end, as impressive as Ray Emery's been, especially as, you know, more of a veteran goalie and you know, the second line goalie, I think I'd say Crawford, just because of where he's come from this year from last. Jimmy Hayes, like you mentioned, he was the first point of the game, and that was his first point of the year for the Blackhawks. Yeah, the Blackhawks that game, you could just see the consistency kind of coming back to them, making really smart passes on the ice. They just dominated puck possession. Andrew Shaw was able to get another one in the net right within 5 minutes, I believe, of that first Jimmy Hayes goal. And it was just really fluid out on the ice. Again, really dominant as far as puck possession goes. You saw Colorado just kind of scrambling around a little bit, and you know, the Avalanche this year have at least played their best hockey when facing the Blackhawks, which coming into this, you know, was a little bit nerve-wracking because they had dropped 3 games previously, but seeing the hard time they'd given the Hawks to earn those points, you know, made it a little bit nerve-wracking. But, yeah, everyone just seemed aware and awake. Patrick Kane pulling those double shifts after Marian Hossa was pulled out of the game early with his injury. You know, it just, everyone was on their toes that night, and it was, you know, great hockey play all around. But at taking away their opponent's ability to play pretty hockey, I guess you could call it. You can't do those flashy plays. You really have to dig in deep and play that ugly style of sneaking in goals from crazy angles, which we know.
Right, dirty goals.
Dirty goals, yeah, which we know Patrick Kane is more than capable of doing. But, yeah, they definitely took out that crowd element, which is something that is so strong in the United Center. And it's almost like having, you know, a seventh guy out there on the ice that just, their job is to take away the other team's momentum. But that taking out that UC crowd, that strong crowd during a playoff game is huge. And so the fact that Minnesota was able to shut down so many opportunities for the Blackhawks and really just kind of slow their offensive game, I think was a big factor in just the pace that kind of happened right off the bat. You know, them scoring the first goal already put a little bit of a damper on it, but then the Blackhawks not getting that opportunity until the second period, I think, you know, took the crowd out of it for a big part of it. I've been looking into Sharp's stats a little bit, and while he hasn't been producing a ton on his own goals, he has. And they talked a lot about him in regards to the power play and how the Blackhawks power play in particular is struggling right now, or just not producing really much of anything. And it hasn't been doing that most of the year, but what I noticed is on the power play goals that the Blackhawks do have that Sharp was on the ice for, he's most in general, like he has the assists on those, and it's partly because he's the one being put out there for that, but more often than not, I have to wonder if, in these 16 games that he's been out, is that one of the factors as to why the Blackhawks power play has been struggling so much, is because he's not there to help generate those plays. And that maybe not necessarily be the one to score, but he has had his hand in a lot of the assists of the other players. That penalty kill at the beginning of the season for the Blackhawks was all we could talk about and just that praise, but it slowly started to decline. They've gotten a little bit better in the past 2 games, but before that, in 3 games, in the Edmonton and the Colorado and Columbus game, the Blackhawks had given away 6 power play goals and only 13 penalty kills, and they haven't improved much. They've given away 1 penalty goal or 1 power play goal in 4 penalty kills in the last 2 games. So it's just something that makes me really nervous, especially given that Anaheim has the number 1 power play at 24.7% in the league right now. So it's not a good time to have your penalty kill when you're facing, not only the number 2 spot in the league right now, but also the number 1 power play. They've got a successful power play, and the Blackhawks, our power play just isn't happening. And I think the only reason we haven't given away more power play goals is just because we haven't been in the penalty box as much in the last 2 games like we were the 3 before. So, yeah, nerve-wracking game. You can tell I'm nervous.
Yeah.